The sound of the city.
98FM's Dublin Talks. Weekdays from 10 a.m.
With Adrian Kennedy.
Take a look around Dublin city centre any day of the week and you will realise how big a problem heroin addiction is. Our streets are littered with addicts strung out on heroin, desperate for their next fix, breaking the law because they are involved in the illegal drug. Well, in the news today, it was revealed that the government has been asked to consider legally prescribing heroin to users who are addicted to the drug. The homeless charity Simon has said that the government should consider this as a possibility for the following reasons: to cut down on the criminal selling of the drugs on the street, to stop all sorts of drug dealing of the drug, and to cut death rates from people getting bad batches of the drug that may be unsafe. Now, the report said that addicts are constantly being fined if they're caught carrying even a small amount of heroin, and they can't afford to pay the fines. And when they continually don't pay the fines, they end up in prison eventually. Niamh Randall is the national spokesperson for the Simon Community. Niamh, that's a fairly radical proposal to legally prescribe heroin to users who are addicted to the drug. Why have you come up with this proposal?
Well, it's part of our overall submission to the public consultation on the personal possession of illegal drugs. So I suppose as part of that process, when we were looking at the whole issue and we were looking at the evidence base in relation to the whole issue, we very much would support the decriminalisation of the personal possession of illegal drugs. And as we suggested as part of this process, there be a wider consideration of heroin prescription, which does happen in other countries. It's very successful in Switzerland. It also happens in other countries, including the UK, Spain and Germany, where it's had very positive results. So while there's going to be this consideration of this whole issue, we'd suggest looking at a broader perspective. And really it's part of a broad harm reduction, health promotion approach to dealing with problematic drug use.
Now, a lot of people, when they hear this, just think this is insane, prescribing heroin to somebody who's addicted on it. Your main motivation is for the reasons that I mentioned, to cut down on the criminal selling of drugs, to basically clean up the streets from this drug, and obviously to ensure that addicts who are using proper heroin, not bad batches.
Yes, I mean, it's for a number of reasons. It's about promoting, health promotion, so better health outcomes for people who are drug users, but it's also about looking at the wider community in terms of drug dealing, in terms of criminal offending, and a range of other things in relation to that. And certainly the evidence has pointed that this is quite successful in relation to dealing with this issue. And I suppose where we come from as well is that, we already have the state prescribes methadone, which is an opiate substitution treatment anyway. And I suppose some of the challenges though with methadone are, I suppose, it's only orally administered, but also in terms of its addictive quality, it's actually more addictive than heroin itself. And there could be challenges in relation to that. So I suppose our suggestions here are let's look at this from a health promotion, harm reduction, and I'm talking about wider harm to the whole community, and how can we keep people as safe and as healthy as possible for as long as possible until either they're ready to access treatment or indeed a drug treatment place is available, because there are waiting lists in relation to drug treatment, which can be a really big problem if somebody wants to become drug free, but they actually can't access a treatment place at that point in time. And what we know from our experience in the Simon communities and also the international evidence is that there's a direct relationship between risk behaviour and housing type. So you see the highest levels of risk behaviour in relation to drug use for those who are rough sleeping, for those in emergency accommodation, and for those who are in very kind of unstable housing environments. So very clearly ensuring that people have access to stable housing has to be part of our whole harm reduction approach as well. So we're not saying this is the only way, we're just saying this is one thing that could be considered as part of the spectrum of harm reduction response, and including access to treatment and rehabilitation as well. You
mentioned Switzerland as an example. How, on a day-to-day basis, does it work there?
Well, I suppose it's very strictly monitored in Switzerland. So, for example, there's very strict criteria in terms of qualifying for this. So you need to be 18 years of age. You have to be addicted. That means involved in daily use of heroin for at least 2 years. Present with poor signs of health, because obviously we know that ongoing injecting behaviour, particularly when it's street heroin, can lead to very disastrous health consequences. You need to also have 2 or more failed attempts at more conventional type treatments. That might be methadone, it could be another type of residential drug treatment. People are required to surrender their driver's license, and it can only be obtained at the clinic and must be consumed, whether it's oral or injection, on site. So it's very, very strictly monitored and controlled, and it targets a very, very particular cohort of drug user.
Okay, so these are people who are chronic drug users who have tried and failed to give up the drug. There's no sign of them coming off it. So this is as a support for them.
It's a very, very clear support and intervention, kind of saying, okay, we've tried most of the things, we think this might work. And what they have found is that there's significant health outcomes. There are a reduction in criminal offending behaviour. There is a reduction in drug dealing. There's also reduced death rates. And certainly in terms of tackling overdose deaths is an area we should be focused on. There's also a reduction in disease rates, so infection of hepatitis C and HIV, and also reduced new rates of, people being initiated into drug use as well. They found that there was a significant reduction there as well.
Who pays for this, Niamh?
I suppose it would be paid for by the state because it would be part of our overall drug treatment programme. I suppose some of the key things that are important to note in terms of our submission around the personal possession of illegal drugs, that if you actually decriminalise, you're going to have cost savings in terms of policing costs, in terms of legal costs, in terms of prison costs. So therefore you could actually talk about ring fencing some of those funds in terms of investing in a more progressive harm reduction, health promotion programme around this. And I suppose secondly, the wider cost of the state anyway. We know that there's awful health consequences associated with ongoing injecting behaviour in particular. Obviously there can be some fatalities, but in terms of people with really, really huge damage to their healthcare and I suppose their quality of life in a more general scale. So looking at this in terms of the social cost as well, we need to be looking at that as well. And
now, can you understand? Can you understand how a lot of people and I can tell you the reaction that we've gotten in so far from our listeners has been very negative towards this idea. The idea of the state funding the supply of heroin to users, to a lot of people, is just like, oh my God, where are we going here?
I suppose this is a very pragmatic approach. I can understand that people might have concerns, and also people might have heard of it before, so it sounds like something, very new. But we do currently prescribe an opiate substitution, which is methadone anyway. So we are already engaging in a substitution treatment or a prescribing of an opiate anyway. So I suppose it's just a different type of opiate that we're talking about here at this point in time. And I suppose the key thing is that it's focusing on harm reduction, and the key principles about harm reduction are pragmatism. So it acknowledges that people are going to use drugs, and how can we best go about intervening to reduce the level of harm, both for the individual but also for wider society as well. So let's be very clear, this is also about keeping our community safer and healthier as well.
Other people have texted in to say, what about alcoholics? Do we give free drink to alcoholics?
Well, there actually are some programs where they are engaged in what would be called an alcohol treatment program. We don't use it here at this point in time. And I suppose the type of addiction that's associated with heroin, it's a different type of addiction in terms of supporting people around becoming drug and alcohol free. But our primary position around this is it's about harm reduction. How can we keep people, whether they're alcohol users or drug users, as healthy and as safe as possible? How can we keep the community safer and a much nicer place for people to live until people can engage in treatment?
All right. Niamh Randall, National Spokesperson for the Simon Community. Thanks very much, Niamh, for joining us on 98FM.
Thank you.
And I'd love to hear from you on this on 6797 981. You can text or WhatsApp the programme 0877 98 98 98. Basically what she's saying is that prescribing, and it's not like this is a new idea, it happens in other countries, legally prescribing heroin. And let's face it, we already, as she said, legally prescribe methadone, which is just a different type of opiate. Okay? So legally prescribing heroin for those who've tried methadone and have failed and really are chronic addicts will clean up our streets. And that makes a lot of sense. You've seen drug addicts rob people on the street in order to get money, in order to feed their habit. If they were prescribed the heroin, sure, that would take them off the streets altogether. They wouldn't have to go robbing in order to feed their habit. Call me right now on 6797 981. You can text or WhatsApp the programme 0877 98 98 98. Stuart, you're on Dublin's 98FM. How are you, Stuart?
How's it going, Adrian?
Stuart, do you think this is the worst idea ever?
Yeah,
Why?
Funding them. I think it's a ridiculous idea to be pumping money into feeding their habits. She's talking about all these reductions. The only one that isn't reduced is the amount of heroin that will be used. It's only who pays for it that changes. And let's face it, people saying it didn't work. Well, if you take it out of their hands, it'll tend to work a lot better. So basically, make it illegal to have it in your system, let alone have it in your possession. Have it in your system, because Helen Keller could spot a junkie the way they look. So take them off the streets. Instead of paying for their drugs, pay for the centre, a cold turkey centre, and have a team of people going around arresting people that look like they have it in their system, testing them. If they do, force them through cold turkey or whatever method.
But you see, realistically, you can't force somebody through cold turkey. What do? Tie them to a bed? Hang on. Tie them to a bed against their will?
Well, first thing you do is you make it illegal to have it in your system. Okay? That's the first thing you do. So they're breaking the law by having it in their system. You see, if they use this 2 seconds before the guard walks around the corner, what can you do? He can do nothing. All he can do is hope that he's that far gone, he's not going to be robbing somebody in the next hour. That's all he can do. He can't do anything else.
No, I'm aware of that, but hang on, just to go back to that point, robbing somebody in the next hour, if he can go to a clinic of some sort and have his heroin prescribed for him, he won't be robbing somebody in the next hour.
Okay, well, just put it this way. He does that for a year, what you're suggesting. What is he at the end of that year? He's the same person he was at the start of the year. He's not off anything. You haven't done anything for him. All you've done is made it easier.
But again, Stuart, you can't force help on somebody. You can't do it.
Well, what I'm saying is they set up the clinic, a centre, and say, look, if you have this in your system, you are going to be detained in this centre under these rules. And that's the law. And once that's the law, then you can put them through it. And at the end of the day, when you force them through that, they're going to be able to re-enter society at the end of it. They're going to be clean.
Yeah, but Stuart, hang on. An addict can't get off the drug that he or she is taking until they actually want to. You cannot force somebody to give up a drug. Because
if they're detained, how are they going to do it? If they're detained because it's in their system for 12 months, how are they going to keep on doing it in detention?
Okay, but hang on. I'll give you an example. At times in my life when I've given up cigarettes and I've been committed to giving up cigarettes, I've found it much easier to do than other times that I was just talked into it and did it just for the hell of it. Do you understand the point that I'm trying to make?
I understand, yeah. But can you understand also that these people in their frame of mind when they get taken in, they are in a different frame of mind. Give them 3-4 weeks of going through whatever the proper process will be. I'm not suggesting that they're just locked in a room and left alone, but they'll have a system in place where over time they are, now even in these centres, maybe small amounts until they're clean off. They'll be thanking you come the end of it. They'll be thanking you come the end of it, and so will everybody else, because they'll be able to re-enter society and they'll be given that second chance that they all say that they want, but just haven't got the will to get it. You're taking it out of their hands. Why spend my money on feeding them?
I just don't know if forceful cold turkey or whatever way you want to put it is actually going to get people off drugs. Because and the point I made a moment ago, if they're not committed to it, they're not going to succeed. Yeah, they might do it for 2 weeks, and then
they're never going to be committed to it as long as they're still taking it. Like, that's the reality of it. As long as they're still taking it, they're not going to want to get off it. They're not in the frame of mind to get off it.
Stay there for a second, Stuart. I'd love to hear from you on this, on 6797981. Can you force people off drugs? I mean, basically what Stuart is saying is lock them in a room until they're off them, and then they'll be grand. Call me on 6797981. You can also text or WhatsApp the programme on 0877 98 98 98. We're talking about a report from the Simon Community that has called on the government to consider the possibility of legally prescribing heroin to users who are chronically addicted to the drug. John, you're on 98FM. How are you, John?
I'm flabbergasted.
You're flabbergasted?
I'll tell you why. First we had gay marriage, then we had abortion, now we have legalised heroin. Where do these liberal groups think they're going with all this rubbish? seriously, where did they think they're going?
Well, they're not talking about
Why
Sorry, hang on for a second.
At all?
John, firstly, they're not talking about legalised heroin. They're talking about prescribing heroin in a controlled manner. And they already do prescribe a different type of opiate in order to get people off, and that's methadone.
I heard that. I just heard that now.
What's the difference?
I just heard that now.
You just heard what now? Methadone?
I just heard that now, that they're prescribing another legal opiate there that they're using for these heroin addicts or what have you. Drugs or whatever. Now, the fact of the matter is, where does personal responsibility come into all this? If you're telling me, or if these liberal groups are telling people today that they're going to prescribe illegal heroin to these addicts so they can come off it or they're safer on our streets, I'm sorry, they're more brain dead than the junkies that are walking the streets today.
Okay,
John, rude about that, but
okay, John, one of the problems that we have in our city
sounds ridiculous.
One of the problems that we have in Dublin, and all you have to do is go around our city centre any minute of any day and you will see this. And that is the antisocial behaviour created by drug addicts, either robbing people or begging off people or just being a bloody nuisance in the city. Now, Dublin's not the only one that has that sort of crap. But if you legally prescribe the drug which they crave, which they're chronically addicted to, that will take all of that crap off our streets. That has to be a good thing, John.
No, it won't, because at the end of the day, what it is taken away from these people is their own self-responsibility to look after themselves and
but they
not
can't.
get on drugs.
But yes, John. But that's like crying over spilt milk. They are. Okay, hang on for 1 second, John. And again, I'm only going to give an example of the one thing I've experience of, and that is smoking cigarettes. I take personal responsibility for the fact that I smoke cigarettes, but I can't cry over spilt milk. I made a stupid decision when I was younger, and I started smoking. I can't take that back. That happened. And the same applies to a drug addict.
But the point about it is, where is self-responsibility when it comes to junkies on our streets, when it comes to anything in our society today? Where is the self-responsibility gone? You have do-gooding groups out there, liberal groups out there say, no, you don't have to worry about it. We'll do everything for you. Adrian, I've never heard such a most ridiculous policy being put to government in all my entire life. I mean, where the hell did these people get off putting this rubbish?
Okay, but in the meantime, John, they continue.
And I'm being nice about it by saying that.
In the meantime, they continue to use their drugs. They continue to have to beg, borrow, and steal the money to get the drugs, and they continue to affect your life, my life, and the life of everybody on the streets of Dublin.
Yeah, but here's another.
We just have to put up with that, do we?
No. Hey, you have another liberal idea here. Disinjection centres that are going to be, coming through this year for junkies to go and get clean needles and all the rest. Are they not promoting these people taking drugs? There shouldn't be any promotion there for them. The fact of the matter is that man you had on before
but John, hang on.
He should be put in a room and let go through cold turkey and get off the bloody thing once and for all. Not keep promoting it and keep promoting them with it. And keep saying to them, look, the do-gooders in society will say, yeah, listen, it's not your fault, and we will give you all the help under the sun. And you know what? We'll even give you free heroin. I mean, come on, it sounds ridiculous. It doesn't even sound logical any longer.
Okay, stay there for 1 second, John. 6797 981 is our telephone number. Text or WhatsApp the programme 0877 98 98 98. This happens in other countries. It's not just Ireland. The legal prescription of heroin in order to care more for the users in that they know exactly what they're taking, but also to take a lot of the antisocial rubbish that is attached to drug users off the streets. Stop them hanging around in all the places they hang around in. Stop them begging. Stop them annoying people. And stop them robbing to feed their habit. Jason, you're on Dublin's 98FM. How are you, Jason?
How you doing, Adrian? How's things?
Jason, you're a former user yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
at the very start, they had FOIO. That was the orange one, and then it turned to methadone. The FOIO used to rot the teeth out of your head. That's why I used to see them years ago. Just 20 years ago now, when I went to the coal mine in 98. So 20 years ago, they had the 5. So when you went to the doctor, you got a bottle. You had 500 mils, and that was it. You got one bottle to get clean. And it did work for people. But then I had friends that I considered that were actually Mickey Mouse drug addicts, only taking small smokes, and they were put onto maintenance courses on the methadone. They're all dead now. You know that. I blame that. They're only... It's education, it's treatment centres, that's the answer. Put it with them.
Okay,
you know?
it's not giving legalised, prescribed heroin.
So they're already getting their Dalmane, their tablets, their methadone, you know. It's like, when I was using, I'd get up in the morning, first thing, I couldn't go to sleep if I had a bag there. I'd end up using it, you know. So I'd get up in the morning, straight away, a bag, you know. One hit didn't do. Like, after I got that bag, mellow for a while, straight away, another bag, you know. So what is the treatment center? Is the new bang-up centre going to be 24 hour? Is it going to be when you need it? One hit won't do. Unless they're going to give them something. If it's one hit, they're going to be out cold for the day. You know, it's not going to work at all. You know, so every
Let me ask you then, Jason. When you were actively using, how did you fund it? How did you pay for the drug? And what sort of life did you have?
It was horrible. I was lived in Tallaght, and the parents would help every way possible. You know, I was at the very start. I was working, hard worker, earned great money, but it got a hold of you. Like every day, you wouldn't even know someone. If someone, you'd be surprised how you don't see someone that is using, that has kind of a little bit of control on themselves. It takes a bit, you know, has a smoke now and again. But when it grabs hold of you, you see them walking around town like zombies, pale white, goofing, you know. And then, of course, you do a bit of selling. You know, to fund your habit. You get an eighth or whatever, break it down, you have a couple of bags for yourself, get rid of it. That's a daily thing. That's how you kind of fund it, you know. And I've never believed that.
Did you ever have to rob anybody, or?
No, I never really robbed anything, but I've done stupid things, of course, you know, back in the day. You know, it was silly, you know. I wouldn't rob fucking grannies or people like that, you know. No,
right, okay. But you do accept that we do have a huge antisocial problem with drug users in the city who do... Of
course you do. So you're giving methadone for free. So methadone will never work. It would never work from the start. How could you be giving substitutes from one thing to another, you know? I know people that are on...
But then Jason, does it not make sense as a form of maintenance, for want of a better word, to just give them the drug that they crave legally?
Why can't they get clean? Be a healthy society. Really? Like there's people in the treatment centres get feck all these days, you know? When I was in Coolmine, people broke off and started their own treatment centres. All they're cut to the bone with funding. You know, that's all they're doing. They're called hustling. They're ringing up trying to get stuff for free, you know, so it'd be better to throw a few bob their way, you know, make day centres into residential where you can stay there, you know, so no, I think the answer is education or into treatment centres, but not to be given free. Jesus.
Okay, stay there for a second, Jason. 6797 981 is our telephone number. Text or WhatsApp us on 0877 98 98 98. 0877 98 98 98. Jeremy's here with all the contacts we're receiving through text message, WhatsApp and on Facebook.
Gary makes a very valid point, Adrian. He says this proposal is like a parent giving into their screaming child who is looking for sweets. So the child is screaming, "Please give me sweets."
That's slightly different though. So, you know, heroin is an addiction. Sweets aren't.
No, but listen to it. It's picking the easy option rather than tackling the real problem, which would actually take a bit more work.
You see, here's
in other words, it's trying to put a plaster over a broken leg.
Okay, but here's the point, and in fact, I want to come back to Jason in a couple of minutes to put this to him. There are people that do seek out treatment. There are people who want help. But there are others who are so chronically addicted to the drug that...
Why did they take it in the first place?
That's another day's conversation.
No, but why did they? Answer the question.
Why did I smoke in the first place? I did a stupid thing. It's a stupid decision. And one I've lived to regret, as I'm sure most heroin addicts have. But the point I was trying to make was, there are some who just aren't ready for help yet. You have to, in your own head, say, right, I'm ready for help now.
and that this is a point that Brian is after making in text message. You keep talking about drug addicts like they are thinking straight. Someone who is strung out on heroin doesn't think straight. Half the time they are like zombies. In other words, that's the point. You're not living in the real world, Adrian, because you try and sit down in front of someone right now who is on heroin, okay, and you try and talk sense to them and try and tell them that they're doing the wrong thing. And what will they say to you?
No, they're the sort of drug addicts I'm talking about who aren't ready for help yet. But let's give them the heroin anyway to stop them having to rob grannies on the street.
Why is that happening?
It happens every day of the week, for God's sake. Don't be so stupid.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm sick of my taxes, says another person, going towards people who are freeloaders. It's always the middle class being punished. I don't know, to that person, are there some middle class people who are on heroin? I think that the suggestion that all people on heroin are down and outs, I think, is quite false as well. Fair play, Adrian. Give them heroin. Methadone is only wanted when they can't afford heroin. As soon as the cash is available, they buy heroin, and they're addicted to both. So this is the reason for that. Lads, have you been in the city centre any given day of the week? It's like the night of the living dead. They are walking around like zombies, and now we want to contribute to this. My taxes will not go towards this, says Amy.
Eddie, you're on 98FM. Hi, Eddie.
Oh, not too bad. You know that John fella must be living under a rock. He was saying there he's only found out now they're giving him a legal substitute. I mean, what does he think they use to wean them off? You know what I mean? But you have to put yourself in the mindset of a junkie, right? Imagine a junkie waking up today, picking up the headline in the newspaper. He'd think all his birthdays would come at once. You know what I mean? He would think all his birthdays would come at once. Free heroin. And then you have to meet certain criteria. What about the junkies, right, that haven't tried to give up twice? That have no intention of wanting to give up? Or the lads that are younger than 18? They're still going to be up to illegal activities and buying off drug dealers. Yeah, you'll get rid of some of the antisocial behaviour and some of them off the streets.
But even
that, where do they go? Where do they go to from the streets? They go to the hospitals. I don't want to be going up to the hospital to visit my sick auntie and seeing 4 fellas stood outside that look like extras out of a Michael Jackson video. You know what I mean? It's you're moving one problem from one area to another area. You know, you're not getting rid of it. You might be cutting down a bit of antisocial behaviour.
But even a bit, Eddie, has to be a good thing. I mean, it
is, but like I said, Adrian, it's kind of promoting it in a way. I agree with him on that point. It is kind of promoting it in a way. I think the best idea is cold turkey. And I'd love it, but I'd love to say, right, throw them all in a dark, dumb cell, lock them away for a while, let them sweat it out. But we'd be done for human rights.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
There's no way around it. You know what I mean? And then eventually, who's going to pay it? The taxpayer.
But sure, the taxpayer, whether you like it or not, Eddie, with all the antisocial behaviour...
I know,
we're paying for it
anyway. It's a double-edged sword.
Yes, we're paying for it anyway.
I just can't see it working here. I just can't see it. You know what I mean? Like I said, you're a junkie, you wake up today, free heroin, you're like, bloody hell, happy days, tell all me mates, we'll hang around the hospitals now. I don't want to be going up there for an appointment and seeing Dawn of the Dead every bleeding month, you know what I mean? It's just... I don't know. I just don't know what the solution is, but certainly doesn't seem like it to me.
Okay, you heard, maybe you did hear that lady earlier on saying that this actually is working in other countries. This isn't a mad Irish idea.
Oh, I know.
This is working on a day. Yeah, this is on a day-to-day basis working in countries like Switzerland every single day.
It's definitely obviously going to cut down some antisocial behaviour. But again, what about the guys that don't meet the criteria? That are younger than 18, that haven't tried to give up voice, that have no intention of giving up, they're still going to be out hanging around the streets of Dublin, pickpocketing, robbing, stabbing people, trying to get their next fix, buying off drug dealers. You know what I mean? You're not eradicating it. You might be lessening a bit of it, but it's still there, you know?
Okay, but stay there for 1 second, because Sarah, you happen to think that this is a great idea. Why?
It's the best idea because it's gone so bad now in Dublin City that everywhere you go, you see the addicts. They're somebody's brother, sister, they're somebody's cousin, whatever. They're human beings. Like a few years ago, I would have said differently, but now I look at them and I see how desperate these people are in the streets. There's no help for them. They're injecting on platforms, they're injecting in buses, they're injecting everywhere in front of people because there's nowhere. It's embarrassing to see them in the street. You see all the tourists looking at them. If you look back 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't as bad. Now it's so bad. You see them. They're 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds. Again, they're somebody's brother and sister. I think it's a start.
And when these people are so chronically addicted, is giving them the drug that they crave for nothing going to help? I mean, you just heard what Eddie said. It's like you hear an addict hears on the news today, free heroin. Way! They think brilliant.
Yeah, but they don't get it. It's not going to be. They don't get it for nothing. I'm sure they have to go to some type of procedure they have to follow. And if they go in and take those drugs, it's in a controlled environment. They have counselling. They have to follow the procedures that they're given, and hopefully they'll get help. But what it is it shows that there's help there, because a lot of sorry, I'll use the word junkie because it's been used, it's a terrible word to use, but if they get help and it's education that they need, because as I said, I see them every day and they're young now, they're walking in front of cars, they don't care, nobody cares about them, they're forgotten about. If they're helped and taken off the street, it's something that has to be something good. Nothing at the moment is doing at the moment for them. They're freely injecting. The police ignore them. It's nothing they can do about it because they've other things to do. And I think it's definitely a start. And they need the centres as well.
Eddie, this would be a start to clean up our streets.
It would be a start, but like you said, Adrian, it has to be up to the addict. You know what I mean? Probably most addicts out there haven't tried to give up twice.
No, I agree.
So it's probably only going to be a small element who actually want to participate.
Yeah, but a small element is better than having nobody. And as well as that, if you have a small element there that will take it up and say, okay, this can help. At the end of the day, methadone isn't helping them. They're out there, they're doing methadone and all that. But at the same time, if you can start now, because you know the streets are absolutely horrendous. Like, you can see them and they're sick, they've nowhere to go. And it's somebody's brother, sister, cousin. And I actually feel sorry for them because I'm a human being. But at the same time, I understand where people are getting pissed off with them robbing and all that. But that's the last resort. Not all the addicts do that. Some addicts, they can be the nicest people, but it's the illness that has them now. And if it's some help for them, at least we know that they're off the streets. The tourists are not looking at them, because I see them and I see the tourists looking and they're going, wow, we're after coming from New York and it's here in Dublin City. So take them off the streets and let people help them. Like, at the same time, again, as I bring it up, I see 15 and 16-year-olds and I'm going, wow. Addicts.
I know it is. It is quite scary to witness.
It is.
Okay, so you think that if this in any way cuts down on antisocial behaviour involved in with drug addicts off our streets, even if it's only a small percentage of them, then that has to be a good thing.
Absolutely. And there's addicts there that have cleaned themselves up. I know they're gone to alcohol and that's another story. But at the same time, where's my USC charges that I was told a few years ago that would be deducted? Take some of them, give it to them, build it up, and then take them away from their social welfare, a few pounds off them. Don't give them for nothing. Control it. Let them understand that there's something at the end of the tunnel there for them, and that they can get away from the addiction, because there has to be something better than what they're doing right now. Jesus, they're there, and some of them are trying to commit suicide. They're that bad. They're sick, and I see it. I've seen it. I've seen them doing what they've done, and it's horrendous because they need help. They haven't got the help. The lad said there, the other addict that's clean now, he said, give it the services. I know some people say, oh, the services this and services that. What do you want them to do? Do you want them to walk in the middle of Dublin City and you see the tourists coming all over the world? I've seen loads of Japanese tourists one day looking, and you could see them, and I was actually embarrassed, and I was going, oh my God. Look at those people in the middle, and this 3 or 4 addicts together. All right,
so if this helps in some way by giving them free heroin, prescribed heroin, well, then that can't be a bad thing. All right, well, look, Sarah, thanks very much indeed for your call. Thank you, John. Thank you, all of you, for your calls. I have to leave it at that. You're listening to 98FM's Dublin Talks.
The sound of the city.
98FM's Dublin Talks. Weekdays from 10 a.m.
With Adrian Kennedy.